Hi, and welcome to the latest in our video chats for PF Pulmonary Fibrosis Awareness Month. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Taleena Koch, who was a PF caregiver and now works heavily in the PF support community. Welcome, Taleena.
Thank you.
So maybe tell us by way of background how you got involved. So I know it was initially it was the diagnosis of your mother.
Correct. In 2003, my mom was diagnosed with idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, and it was the first time that we had ever heard of it. Neither one of us had ever heard of the disease. And so my first goal was to try to learn more about it. Her doctor, gave us some education and everything, and then the rest was we just kind of set out on our own, researching and learning about the disease. And so that's how I got involved with this. She was, when she was diagnosed, she was very end stage already at that point. And the doctor said she probably had 2 years at best to live, but she actually lived for 6 years. So we just kind of did our homework and tackled everything that happened along the way. So.
And of course, that was before there was any treatments available at the time.
Correct.
So you mentioned there you did your homework. What were the types of things that you were researching, and I suppose what were the sources of information you were looking for?
Right. The first thing that I did is I went to the internet and started searching for information on pulmonary fibrosis. Most everything that I read had the standard, 3 to 5 years survival rate, things like that, the things that people typically see now still. I didn't find that there were any treatments. Her doctor, told us that there weren't really any treatments. There were a couple of things he wanted to try on her, which he did. And they didn't really do anything. So he discontinued, those medications. I didn't find any online support groups at the time. So we were just kind of in this on our own. She was being talked to about lung transplant. So we did go to a couple of the lung transplant support groups at the hospital. But other than that, we didn't really find a lot of information. It was just kind of more learning. Like, I would ask her doctor a lot of questions, and, he was incredible about giving us information, both him and his nursing staff. He gave me email addresses to email his nurses, so, I could ask them and learn along the way. And that's just kind of how we learned. And every time she had something new pop up, medically, we jumped on it, and I asked lots of questions. And that's how I basically learned about this disease.
I think the key, you touched on it there, asking questions. And I know sometimes some people are afraid to ask their doctors questions, but it really is crucial to make sure you understand everything and you understand all of the options.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the reasons why people don't take time to ask questions is because a lot of times they feel rushed at their doctor appointments. And, either they themselves think that they need to get out of there quickly, or their doctor may seem like they're rushed and they need them to get out of there quickly, so they don't take the time. Her doctor was never like that. He always, he was always willing to answer our questions, and he never rushed us out of the room or anything like that. So it was easy to ask those questions and get answers. And then, of course, having email access, that was back in the day when doctors didn't let you email them at all. So having email access was great, because then I could just, shoot them a quick email and say, okay, so this is happening. Should I be worried about this? What should we do? So that was very helpful. And, asking questions of your doctor is something that I am constantly telling people to go ahead and do. It's the only way that they're going to learn.
So was it after your mom passed away you got involved and set up online support groups, or tell us how that evolved?
It actually was shortly before she passed away. She was diagnosed in 2003, and she passed away in the end of September 2009. And in August, I'd never stopped really looking on the internet for more information. And in August, I already knew that the Pulmonary Fibrosis Foundation had a website, and so did the Coalition for Pulmonary Fibrosis at the time. And I found finally, which had been out there for a while, I found a support group for caregivers that was through the Pulmonary Fibrosis Foundation. And so I joined that support group about a month and a half before my mom passed away. And the support that I got from day one was amazing. You know, I started learning right away things that I had noticed with my mom over the years, and started understanding what was really going on with her from other caregivers. After she passed away, I stayed in the group, and those caregivers helped me, you know, continue to learn as well as help me with my grief. And I just stayed in, and then at one point the PFF asked if I would co-moderate the group because their moderator was leaving. So there were two of us that took over moderating the group, and, you know, just bringing new people in and helping people get going and everything. And then when they switched to Inspire for a support platform, they were going to get rid of the groups. And so we didn't really want to get rid of the groups at the time. So we asked if they could just transfer ownership, and they said they could. So I said that I would take them. And so in 2011, they turned the groups over to me. And those were through Yahoo groups at the time. And so I took them and I kept them going. And then since then, I've created my Facebook groups as well. So that's kind of how I got started in all of this.
And, you know, tell us what it's like for new people coming into those groups today. So what are the types of things that are most important for them to learn? And I suppose tell us about the power of these groups for helping people, you know, exchange ideas.
Right. When new people come in, most of them are very overwhelmed, which is how I was, you know, coming in. Whether they're patients or loved ones, they come in with a lot of questions. Most of them have never heard of the disease. Many of those who have heard of the disease have because they have other family members who have had it. So they come in just very overwhelmed. They also come in typically depressed because they've been online, they've read the statistics, you know. So one of the first things that I tell them when they come in the group is ignore the statistics, you know, ignore the numbers because they're averages. And, you know, one of the big things that I learned when I joined is ignore the numbers, they're averages and nobody's average. Yeah. So that's what I continue to tell people. And then, you know, we talk about questions to ask your doctor, ways to, you know, deal with living with the disease, for a caregiver, how to take care of someone with this disease, because it's very tasking for a caregiver. You know, so things like that. It's just one of those things. There's so many questions, but, you know, some of the things that I've tried to do along the way is I've created a document that's up in the Facebook groups that is a list of questions to ask your doctor. You know, so go back to the doctor and ask all of these things. And along with it, I also tried to put in there, you know, here's what you should be hearing from your doctor. So if you're not hearing this, keep asking, you know, to try to kind of guide them. And that's what the groups are for. It's to guide them along this journey.
And I suppose one of the questions to ask is around the options for clinical trials, because there is hope for this disease. Sorry, that's a dog in my house barking.
That's all right. Mine's on the floor asleep.
there is hope. You know, it's not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but you know, statistics are statistics, and some people will do better. And yes, there's no cure, but there are options. And for some people, lung transplant is an option. So I think it's important that people ask a lot of questions.
Correct. And that's one of the things that we talk about in the group are, you know, clinical trials that are going on. Lung transplant is an option. A lot of people don't even know that transplant is an option. It's not something that their doctors bring up with them, especially right away, and especially if they're earlier in their diagnosis. So, you know, getting them to understand that the sooner they bring this up with the doctor, the better. And, you know, one of the things that I try to remind people of with this disease is there's no clear progression of pulmonary fibrosis, and it doesn't matter what form it is. It doesn't matter whether it's IPF or PF from an autoimmune disease or some other cause. There's no clear progression. So patients can go from being early stage, very healthy, to having an acute exacerbation and being very sick very quickly. So they can pass that line between too well to transplant and too sick to transplant.
Yeah,
So
it's never too early to think about transplant.
exactly. So I always tell people, go back to your doctor and, talk about transplant. The people who are, say they're not interested in transplant, what I tell them and what others tell them as well is explore the options, because you may think you're not interested in it. You may think you won't qualify or you don't have the support, but it's always better to go, thoroughly through the process and then make that decision, because, you don't know, you might go ahead and qualify. You might be able to find the support that's out there. So, and you might change your mind. I've known many people over the years who said, I don't want to transplant, and then they changed their mind. And some were lucky enough to be able to do it and others were not. And so it's a sad thing when somebody changes their mind and then they can't do it. So
yeah, that's really good advice. Any other last thoughts to give to people, or any activities you're involved in this month specifically for Pulmonary Fibrosis Month?
What I try to tell people is, I try to get them to share information with their family and friends, share information on their own, because this is a Facebook platform for my online support groups, is sharing information on Facebook. Some people are hesitant to do it. They don't want to bother their family and friends, but I keep reminding them that the only way to make this disease a household name is to get it out there. Everybody knows what cancer is. Everybody knows what AIDS is. Most people don't know what pulmonary fibrosis is. They've never heard of it. So the way to do that is to talk about it. And, in September, we've got the PFF is doing their 30 facts in 30 days. And so I continually share those and, encourage everybody to share that as well. I also share stuff, on my own that I encourage people to share. One of the things that a lot of us do is we try to get proclamations that, so I got a proclamation from the state. I've done this for probably 5 years now in a row, 4 or 5 years, getting a proclamation from the state that declares September as Pulmonary Fibrosis Awareness Month. I would still like to try to get some media push behind it. That's harder to do than just getting the proclamation. But, at least the proclamation's out there. It's something that people would see if they tried to Google it. And, it does at least make our governor more aware of it. We're very lucky in this state because our people in political power here, are very much behind research and things like that. I talk to people about, I have wristbands that I made, and I have this little journal that I made that I sell and donate the money to various foundations. And, so that's another way to raise awareness. And, just trying to get people to talk.
Yeah.
So
every extra person that knows about it is a step forward. So every little bit helps in this regard. That's for sure.
Right.
Well, Taleena, thank you very much for your time and for everything you're doing to raise awareness, but also to spread education and knowledge amongst other people who are helping loved ones with pulmonary fibrosis. So
I'm very happy and fortunate to be able to do this to help others. So
yeah, it's very good of you to give back. Take care and hopefully talk to you again soon.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye, Taleena.
Bye-bye.